Lights are and identifying that, making that visible, noticing where the next level of shading is, and then darker and darker until you get all the way around until you have cast shadows on the floor, and you'll see where they are. You can see the floor. There's multiple shadows because there's multiple sources of light. You understand? So, but what he's saying is that when you do that, you have to be consistent. It means you have to do that for every character, for every object that's occupying that space.
Everyone has to have a commonality. And lighting is what brings a scene together. I mean, what we do, the basis of what we do, is study from life. So, if someone comes to me and asks me, what do I do to become a better artist, I'll always tell them, just draw as much as you can, and draw from life. Study the masters, go to museums. Not that you have to anymore because of the internet. That's what I used to do back in the day, aging myself here. But I would go to museums and I would just immerse myself. And even if I didn't know what I was looking at, I would absorb it and then try to go ahead and emulate that in my own work. And so over time, I made lots of mistakes. Mistakes are learning steps. I always say, encourage people to, don't be afraid of making mistakes, just work. Get it out.
Yeah, I also want to add to the lighting, the discussion about lighting. Like when I was in high school, I was a fine arts major. And one thing I struggled with for a long time, as you see, we do a lot of cartoon work and comics and things like that, but we're also trained in the fine arts. We do portraits, illustrations, pencils, graphite drawings. Art is art. You just have different mediums, you have different categories of art. And I remember my high school art teacher saying, life doesn't have a black line around. So because when you're a young child, a lot of times you learn how to draw from watching cartoons and reading comic books. So everything has a black line around it. When you're drawing your mom, she got a black line around it. You know what I mean? And it's like, when you really get into fine art, like Brian said, studying from light, you'll notice that what defines form is light. Like how is, if all the lights went out, you won't see anything. There's nothing defined. So when you're drawing somebody, let's say Brian, for instance, he's sitting here, what separates, like say if I was going to paint this composition, what would separate him from that red curtain is the color and the lighting. I don't create a line around his face. I might sketch it in at first, but really what defines it is moving around in the way there's a light coming down here that's highlighting this area here. The light is coming down this way, reflecting off his glasses. And the more you study that and really start studying light, after a while, sometimes you may say, hey, I can draw, and trust me, I still get challenged on this now, where it's like, cars is not my strong point, something over here may be my strong point. How do you draw a see-through garment and draw metal? You have to draw all these different types of textures, but the thing is, don't really look at the texture, look at the light. Look at how light is hitting something, like how that light is hitting the wall. And that dark shadow going against this wall is what defines this wall here. It may sound a little, I don't know if it sounds a little complicated. When I was in high school, it was complicated. I didn't know what he was talking about. It took me years to really finally understand what he was saying. So now I really realize like the importance of light. And even in cartoons and comics, if you're going to have the villain, you usually light him from below, to give them that sinister look, and so forth. But I just wanted to touch on that.
So again, drawing from life. This study was more about capturing a gesture than actually drawing in a detailed illustration where you know it's a woman because she's, you know, not because you can see every little bit of hair or every little detail in her clothing, but the form and the shapes and the curves are what are telling the story. This is what's called gesture, and in animation, the gesture is the most important thing. Gesture captures the energy. We have what they call the line of action, and this is what you consider the line of action, starting from here, going around the back, going around our rear, and just coming around to where the weight is planted at her knee. Same thing here. Usually it follows the spinal cord and curves around to wherever the form is touching the ground. Another one. Go up the page. So I wanted to tell a little quick story about this guy. This is an illustration that I did while I was at Cartoon Network, for the Adult Swim section of Cartoon Network. They wanted me to do this DVD cover based on my illustrations that I did for Ben 10 and for the other shows. Remember? I was in there. Oh yeah. So, and this one. How do I? I knew that. So this guy here, he's basically a skull. So I took all these sculptures, these photographs, high-resolution photographs of bone, and I overlaid it onto his skin to make it look more like actually chiseled bone. This DVD cover the show, Hopeless Dingo, was made by a local company called Floyd County Animation. I got a job with them a few years later, after leaving Cartoon Network on a show called Archer. So that was pretty much my first gig after leaving Cartoon Network, after getting laid off. They like to lay off artists over there. Oh, some more Disney stuff. So I'll get to the storyboards eventually. Different style. And this has a more painterly background, where only the main characters have line art. And again, this was done, the characters were done in Illustrator with vector art, and then the vectors were imported into Photoshop, where I was then able to fill the artwork, fill the lines, color everything. That's one of the last pieces that I did. This is a video illustration that I did of my mother on Procreate. Procreate is an application that I downloaded for my iPad Pro. It basically takes every stroke and plays it back in sequence at a higher speed. So first I did the feeling, the color feeling. And then I added lines on top of it to sort of control the shapes. I use the lines as a guide. As Dawud was saying, the lines are not meant to stay. Not usually.
But dealing with the light question, you notice that throughout this, he was adding a lot of highlights to it, and then now adding shadows.
And in a moment I'll show there's contrast. Contrasting tones. And I'll explain that. It'll be something. For some reason, I haven't been able to draw my mother until now. I've drawn her before, but I was never really satisfied. This is the closest I've come to being satisfied with a drawing. Now, you would think my parents were very supportive of me as a child, but when I drew them, it was always kind of, that's nice. I'd be like, but that's a joint, that's a joint. You know, it's me, it's my wife. Oh yeah, so this is another client I work with, Nickelodeon, on a style exploration of Dora the Explorer.
Can you talk about style? Because sometimes people ask me, like, how do you develop a style? Like, where does style come from? Like, what's your
style is something that you develop. It's basically, everyone has a different signature, and you might call it a style. Because you've done it so many times, it's comfortable, you do what's comfortable, your muscle memory is telling you to do. And so it's not so much an effort for you to make your signature because it's yours. So that's your style. And it goes the same for your illustrations. The group that I worked with at Disney was in charge of all of the artwork for United States and Europe of the standard character group, which is Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, Pluto, etc., etc. And everybody in my team had a different style, slightly different feel. Again, they all had to adhere to the guidelines, to the parameters of how to draw these characters properly on model. But everybody has slightly different styles. So when we're out at Walmart and we see a T-shirt or a coffee mug with Mickey Mouse on it, I know who's the artist. I know who created that. Question?
Yeah, I have a question. Just business-wise, I guess before you move on to storyboarding, I wanted to know. You're saying that you're calling them your clients, but then there are times where I guess you're employed by Cartoon Network, and then there's by project, and I'm just trying, or whether there's an hourly salary. I'm just trying to understand money, and I'm trying to understand how you don't get taken advantage of as an artist. Because when you say they have to go back, change this, change that, when you're doing that on a non-Cartoon Network and you're dealing maybe on a local level, that's a lot of time for an artist, and I just wanted to get your feedback on how you can best charge a good rate so that both people walk away happy. You understand the question? Yeah.
I'll let you talk about that too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, you have something called work for hire. Work for hire is when you're hired to work on a project where you get paid flat out and that's it. You get no residuals. Your benefit is that, hey, you got paid for that moment. You got on a project. You'll get credit on what it is that you're doing. And that's pretty much it. And usually when you're doing work for hire, there's that understanding that, this is not mine. I'm working on somebody else's character. So, you don't get personally like attached to the project. Now, what you're saying in terms of like working for somebody local, it can be the same thing. It still could be work for hire. But you do want to factor in, like, do you have an hourly rate? It can still be work for hire, but like you said, I can't work on this forever. Hey, can you change his arm? Then you go back and change the arm. His head is a little bit off. Can you straighten his head out? And then you come back. Move his arm back the way it was the first time. And if you don't create a guideline or an agreement, you'll keep changing that character forever. And for that same $700. You know what I mean? Right. So if you have a day rate, you either have a day rate or an hourly rate, and then once they understand that, they're not going to come back with all these changes because then they're going to know they're on the clock. So that's your due diligence as an artist. Check out a book called Pricing and Ethical Guidelines, and you can get that on Amazon. And that book is great because it's like an illustrator's Bible. Because it has agreements in it that you can use. It talks about all different types of laws and copyrights and things like that. And get the latest one. I guess the 2017 is out. So that way it's updated to the changing of the technology. You know, so you have digital art in there, animation, 3D animation, and all that. And they'll have like industry rates and industry standards. And on these agreements that you make with people, they'll understand that, you know, you'll have a cancellation fee. Say somebody hires you to do a job, and they decide, you know what, never mind, we don't want it. And you already, you know, hey man, I'm like halfway into this thing. There should be a cancellation fee. And the cancellation fee may be at like 50% or 75% of what you were going to give me. So that way it's understood, and you have a contractual agreement where they owe you that. So there's a lot of things like that. You have I forgot what the other one is called. But you get that book, that'll answer a lot of those questions. And talk to my man Dan right there. I'm telling you, that is the encyclopedia right there on the heart.
Can you repeat the title of the book again?
Pricing and ethical guidelines. And actually, Dan, if you don't mind, could you just let people know what you're doing in the art community?
Right.
Can you step up to the mic, please?
Yeah, y'all should know about this brother right here.
I am Dan. My name is Dan Flores. I'm an artist, full-time artist for 20 years, but I'm also the founder of Artist King. And Artist King deals with the answers for the question you just asked right now. And so what we do is we try to connect artists with professionals and get the answers that they're looking for. And the most important thing that we're trying to tackle is art business education. You need an art business education. And so through these kind of conversations and going deeper into it is how you can also become a full-time artist like these guys up here. And many other artists before us, they've all earned through their talent and through their art. And it's just figuring out what other parts that we can apply to ourselves to also become full working artists. And so Artist King, we meet the second Saturday of the month. It's free. It's at General Assembly on Ponce City Market. And just come on through. We are there from 12 noon to 3 p.m. And that is one day that I dedicate, one day out of the month that I dedicate my time to answering all artist questions and talk about the art business and try to give you as many answers as we can. I also bring in and invite artists who are professionals to give us some of their overviews and advice about how to handle the art business. But I will give you this little tidbit. Mentorship and apprenticeship, internship, look into that. Whatever questions you have about your art career, you can find, these guys are easily accessible, they're awesome people, but there are also other artists out there who will answer your questions while you do something for them. So, if I wanted to know more about Dawud's business, I would ask Dawud to let me volunteer my time for him. Do whatever I can for any of these artists that are out here, or even just buying dinner, say, hey, can I take you out to dinner, take you out to lunch? And then ask them the deep questions. But you will always learn more by putting in your time with another artist. I have interns myself, and they put in their time with me. I give them as much information as possible so that they can also get out there and be their full-time artists themselves. So think about that as another avenue. ArtistKing.org, and we have classes, workshops, and meetups all the time. Come on through. Anything that I can do with my hand that I can get paid for. That's right. I'm traditional and digital. I do walls, I do canvas, I do tattoos. I've been doing it for a long time though, and but I have all my different skills have a particular business that I tackle, and I find my clients that way. So check it out, artistking.org, artistking_ATL. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Actually,
Dan.
yeah, and I find that to be one of the most significant questions of what the brother was saying, because when I think about art school and my experience in art school and how there was no preparation of business, you know, it's like, it was like just learn how to draw and then go out there and
Good luck.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Go out there and, you know,
Stumble and fall.
stumble and fall, and a lot of times it is fall. And so I think learning about the business of the art, copyrights and trademark, ownership of your work, I mean, that's key, especially in this business where, like Brian, he's showing you his, you know, basically his work for hire work, and I have work for hire work, but then we also have our own intellectual property that we create. So when you're creating your own work, you're your own boss. And that is the work that you profit from, that your children will profit from, if done correctly. So that's why, the business, after like anything else that you do, any of your talents that you do, always remember at the end of the day, it's a business if you want to own it. Now, if you want to exploit it, you don't mind getting exploited, then don't worry about the business part.
Now, let me just say this real quick. I said before that I love to take advantage of artists. It's par for the course, but it doesn't have to be that way. What we're saying about business and understanding your rights and making sure you contract and make sure you have an agreement is very critical, because if it's in writing, you can't say, oh, I never said that. And you signed off on it, and you're on the same page with me. So it's critically important that everybody communicates their desires and expectations. So, lost track of what I was going to say. But
I wanted to say last thing is don't be afraid to fail. There's many times in all our careers in the very beginning where we did stuff for free, we got played out, somebody stole our artwork, something happened. And that's okay as long as you don't let that happen twice. So get educated, find the right artist to talk to, join meetups, go to events like this, and find the people in the industry who are leading the charge and educating the public and helping you out.
I'm going to show some of my older work. My first film was Too Fast, Too Furious. And this was a scene called Barrel Race at the end of the movie. The main character is Brian. That's Paul Walker's character. And there's a lot of zooming in on his eyes. If you show the movie, if you can see the movie, you'll notice that there's a lot of zooming in. A lot of close-ups, a lot of action. Lots of frames, we're already up to frame 90, and I haven't even I've only shown you 2 pages. I was trying to, get the most concise frame. But behind here, this is an over-the-shoulder shot. We're looking over the shoulder to what appears to see his car coming towards him, so they're about to play chicken. And there's a close-up on the speedometers, and this frame here, that's an arrow which shows the direction of the camera. So that's a pan. So I wrote close-up on speedometer, maxed out. Pan left to steering wheel. So we're starting off on the speedometer to show that the car is maxed out, and the engine's about to explode, and then we pan over, and we see the steering wheel. There's a close-up. So these are just different terminologies that one has to familiarize themselves with, so that when you're doing a job that has storyboarding job, and you have to be able to speak the director's language, and that includes terms like panning, zooming, tilt, dolly shots, and these are all different terminology. So, and also when someone says, "Give me a shot like that over the scene in Jaws." If I haven't seen Jaws, I don't know what they're talking about. So I've got to sort of familiarize myself with all these great films that have been popular. Anyone have any questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think what can you say? Okay. Yeah. Are you saying are you asking the directors almost never know how many panels. All they know is this is what the story says, and this is how it should feel. That's all they know. I want it to look like a close encounter. I want it to look like, feel like this and that. So then I got to go and do the research, and then figure out what it feels like, and try to incorporate that into the shots. And I go through the script, and I break down the script into a shot list. And the shot list can be 30 to 100 frames. Well, it's similar to the layout stage in comics. In comics, you go through the script and you block out the page and you lay it out, kind of lay out the story, how the page should feel.
Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So
Sure.
1.
How often is it that actual film is from the storyboard?
Often, unfortunately. There's a lot of times I want to show what I did and compare it to what's been produce, and I don't really get a chance to do that as much as I would like.
It happens.
But it happens, and I've got a shot. I've got a scene which you guys can look at after I get to the other questions. But yeah, a lot of the time, like I said, everything is committee, and also when you're doing film work, there's timing. The shot is running too long. The movie is running too long. So you've got to cut things out. And sometimes things budget, and sometimes the work that I sweat over stayed up overnight, and pull my hair out, get it on screen, and cut. So I'm been paid, so I can't really complain, but I want to show off sometimes.
Sits in the back.
Yes, I have a really quick question about the artist's rights and their opinions on their own creative work, which is how do you feel about facelifts and what those are basically in like fan communities or fans of comic books and other TV shows. A lot of times they make characters, and oftentimes they'll just use images that they find on the internet without real credit to the artist. And I don't know if I have an artist friend, but I'm not quite sure how you all feel about that. Do you feel like it's a breach of intellectual property? Do you feel like it's unoriginal, or?
You mean like they'll take somebody's artwork and put it in an animation? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, or they'll just design a character around it. So if there's no name, say it's like a picture of some random person that you designed, and they say this person's name is Elizabeth, and this is what they do, without consulting the actual artist of the art that they're using.
Yeah, I think that would be another one of those questions that would, because I remember Dan, the artist King, the one that we attended, and the woman was there talking about copyright infringement. He does full presentations on that. So I think that's something that's a little bit more in depth. Of course, I would say, yeah, that's copyright infringement, but we live in this age of the internet where it's almost like, how do you stop it? You know, because I know some people, they're afraid to like post up any work because they don't want it stolen. But at the same time, you live in an age where, well, if you don't post up, nobody knows who you are. So it's kind of like a catch-22. So it's almost like you got to kind of look at, is it that important to me? Is it making that much money where I got something to get if I sue them? Because, you know, if you're suing somebody and there's really nothing to get, you know, what's the big deal? But if they're taking your character and they're generating something where it's worth your time to hire a lawyer and go after it, then yes. But I would say definitely link up with Dan afterwards and see if you can talk to them about the, just the legalities of something like that.
Brother Negree?
Yes, question in relations to storyboarding in film and television or animation. Is there certain styles that apply in terms of film, like, there's a certain way that's being done? For example, in animation, cartoons in particular, Marvel has its own style, Disney has its own style. Does that kind of falls in line with film as well in that?
In my experience, directors get scared when they see storyboards that are too detailed, because detail means time and time means money, and they want the storyboard artists to appear and actually produce quickly and to make it look quick. And so there are certain styles that have been formulated that differentiate storyboard art from comic book art. You won't see that level of detail in storyboards because it's not necessary. Like we said earlier, a decent storyboard can be a stick figure. You don't necessarily have to be the best artist to be a storyboard artist, but you do have to enjoy it because there's so much work involved sometimes, and if you're not enjoying it, then what's the point? But as far as illustration, I mean, I'm actually someone who struggles with what level to put my storyboards out. Should I make it more detailed? Should I make it less detailed? It also depends on the director. I've had people tell me storyboards are too cartoony. And I've had other people say, can you make it less rendered, less tight? Can you loosen it up a little bit? So just kind of, it's a her job to feel it out. Everybody's different.
Another question too, in terms of shot list, is there like a certain point of elimination, you know, because I understand as storyboard artists, you're following along a shot list from the director. Is it like, are the panels just the same as a shot list, or just, how does that work?
Well, the shot list, I'm usually the one that makes my own shot list, but I have to be with the director. I have to say, this is what I think it should be, and they'll say, well, no, I need less of this and more of that.
Okay.
You know, a screen, one page can be either, like I said, 30 frames, 10 frames even. Sometimes, you know, different parts of the movie don't have to be storyboarded. Usually it's about logistics. I'm there to help them figure out how to do the logistics. I work on The Walking Dead. They do a lot of stunts and a lot of action sequences that are complicated and expensive. And the directors need to convince the money people of what the movie's going to look like, or what the shot is going to look like, or how expensive it's going to be. And so that's when they call me. Usually it's a car chase, or a fight scene, or you know, a shootout, something like that. But this particular one I wanted to show you, I was going towards more of a detailed style, and I was given free rein to just do what I wanted to do at that point. I've developed a really good relationship with them. And so this particular scene, this is probably the most illustrative storyboard that I've done. And I was just having fun with it, and they really like it. I just wanted to give you a screen side-by-side comparison of how the shot turned out.
And we got you for it out too.
Yeah. And you know, okay. Open up the. I'll let you do it. Oh, no. Well, I think he might get volume. Can you bring his light down for me? Thank you.
Why does everyone always assume the worst? How about you come on out?
Just have the car. And the knife for the dead ones, nothing else.
No. You got information. Like where you're from, where you're going. Oh, come on. It's a lonely world. Let's get to know each other. I'm hero. Your turn.
Nobody, really. Nancy from Montclair. but I've bounced around a lot since then. I keep moving. Not really from anywhere. I'm not really going anywhere.
Well, at least we agree on one thing, Nancy from Montclair. You're not going anywhere. But you do seem like you're from somewhere. After Montclair, right? Miles, what's that place called? The gated one. 12.75 clicks down.
Alexandria.
Yeah. Alexandria. You know, they got some cars out front, spikes through them, just like the one you're driving. A woman like you, no weapons, no protection, no clue. You really shouldn't be out here alone. You know, we were just on our way to your place. We can give you a ride back. Maybe they'll let us in if you're with us.
I just remembered something that talking about artist rights. I think that in my case, I found that clients of mine are less likely to be funny with me because they know that I'm part of a corporation. So it's not just Brian McGee, it's BRE Productions International. That's who they contact to hire me for work. And everything is above board, everything is professional, everything is legal. And so when they see that, they tend to think, oh, we have to be on board too. We have to be above board, and we have to be professional. And that's just what I tend to find out. They know that artists are not business oriented necessarily, and if they see that you're affiliated, then there's less likelihood of shenanigans.
Right. Just want to know how often do you work with like art directors? I know you're working with directors, but how often do you work with an art director to establish a community? Do you ever have instances where you have to put color work at the storyboard?
Not often, really. Most of the time it's. I've done some color work, but it's usually just to. It's not really storyboard. It's to sell a product, to sell a concept. These are pitch boards for Mitsubishi advertisers. So these are, I just provide a mood for the art director to sell in the pitch to the client, to Mitsubishi. In their meeting, they put these on a big screen and they talk through these shots so that to get a feel of what it's going to be like when it's finally produced. And that's the job. So they're more likely to call me back for other projects. And this is not a lot of, there's not a lot of opportunities for color work, at least in my experience. It takes a lot longer to do color. There's some Smith and Wesson stuff that worked on. I'd like to give Dawud a chance to show his work too. I want to hog his time. Whatever. The last one I did. This was in December. I put myself in the storyboard. Yeah, I had to look it up. And again, these are all just for the feel. I don't know if anybody's in football. I'm not. So
Y'all know who that is. Who's that guy? Fitzgerald.
Mm-hmm.
Fitzgerald, exactly.
yes. So this is all based on his life as a kid. He can run really fast, obviously. Right. And everything is long. His hair is long. So the whole thing is called Go Long. And it's all about his hair. His hair has to always be prominent. There were times where, well, he needs more hair. Can we give him some more hair? All right. I'll let you have it.
just real quick, your use of arrows and these like little like intensity lines and all that, is that like just standard storyboard communication, or is that something that you do?
For film work,
Mm-hmm.
I have to involve the camera. Cameras, it needs to be quickly recognizable what's going on in the shot, so I use arrows. Some people draw in red. I like to draw in either big, bold, black or white arrows. So. The way I got involved in storyboards is kind of funny. This was back in the VCR days. I basically drew a Huggies commercial frame by frame, and I used that as my portfolio because I was already confident about the drawing aspect, but I just didn't have anything to show like a storyboard. And it was just basically a copy frame by frame. I would pause the commercial shot by shot and draw each shot out, and then put them all together and dress it up nicely. And I presented that as my portfolio. Would you like to hire me? And fortunately, they were agreeable to it. Virgil?
Yes. Does every the last storyboard you were showing, is everything always photo reference, or is just something freestyle?
I try to photo reference.
Okay.
But if I spend more time in Google image search than drawing, then that's a problem. So I try to make it quick. Either you go from memory or I can.
Right here.
My question is, when it comes to drawing, I'm not really an artist. I've seen that I'm a drawer, but I really get to drawing. Is it true that everybody starts the base color is black and color white over or the depends on the image?
It depends on the image. Some people, well, you said drawing, you start with black and draw white on top of it. Most people draw white on white paper with black ink. But I've seen some people draw on scratchboard. Scratchboard is just black, and then you scratch away to reveal white. So I've seen that. It's not, there's no rule really. If they like what you've done, then they're going to expect that. If all you've done is watercolors, then that's on your website. Someone calls you up to do storyboards, you're like, well, what's this pencil stuff? You promised us, your illustrations on your website. This is what we hired you for. It varies.
In the red.
For storyboarding, how long does it take you to storyboard for a movie versus for animation?
For a movie, it really depends. I was on Godzilla for 30 days, Godzilla 2, and but it was about 2 months of work crammed into a month. It was crazy. But really, I've worked on the commercials for 1 day to 2 weeks. So really, it all depends on the script and what the director's needs are, and what the production's needs are.
But sometimes they'll have you just do a specific scene as opposed to the whole entire.
Yes. They like I said, they usually need scenes that are difficult to shoot logistically, or expensive shots, or special effects. And when it comes to special effects, it's similar to storyboarding for animation. In animation, your storyboards have to be spot on. They literally take, when they're doing animation, for like a television show for TV animation, they'll take the storyboards and use those frames as the key points where they use those they call them keyframes, and they take these keyframes, maybe one keyframe at second number 1, and then another one at second number 10, and they'll have someone in between all the other frames, and that's called a tweener. That's another subject. Yeah.
What's neat about it?
Pardon me? It hasn't been released yet.
Oh.
Yes, new one. I'm from New York.
And this young man is from Philly.
Okay, so I'm Dawud Anyabwile, and actually I was since I was 19 years old, going back to like 84. I used to airbrush, like custom airbrush t-shirts at the mall downtown Philly. I was doing that for years, and then I got into doing the comic books, the BrotherMan comics. Actually, after the presentation today, we wanted to walk you all through. If you haven't had a chance to check out the BrotherMan art exhibition right over here across the hall in the gallery, we we're going to walk through with you and you know, give you some more background in me and Brian's journey and contributions to pulling this whole show together. So my work is actually pretty pretty diverse in that, you know, I might do caricatures like this. This is let me bring the lights down a little bit, please. This image is, I did this. This is kind of some of my older work. This is all digital. There's no pencil. And this is when I really first started getting into digital work. So I was always doing like caricatures, or I would really consider this, it's kind of like midpoint caricature, portrait. And I was kind of learning about layering. So I think some of my pieces got a lot better since then. But I don't really beat myself up in terms of my work quality. What I do is I just keep going. I just keep working and just try to keep getting better at what I'm doing. And, you know, some people, they block themselves before they do anything. You know, they'll look at somebody else's work and get frustrated and say, well, I'll never be that good. And then they just kind of don't do anything. And that kind of defeats the whole purpose. So, oh, and also I'm going to apologize because I'm not as organized as the brother you just saw here, because my hard drive crashed. I used to have like everything all together. I had my storyboards with the videos, and I was a victim to a hard drive crash.
What had happened was...
Yeah, so I had to kind of like scramble to put a lot of my pieces together, because I was at Cartoon Network for about Turner Studios doing board work for Cartoon Network, CNN, Turner Sports, TNT. I was doing that for like 12 years, so I had a ton of commercial work. And what happened was at the crash, all my files were renamed. They're all named by numbers, so it was hard for me to pull a lot of my files together. But I got something here to show. But some of the boards I might be able to show you the final commercial spot. But I wanted to show you the boards first, then the final commercial. But there's some I can, and some I'll just show you the final spot. And like I said, since we're kind of freestyling today, I wanted to kind of give you a variety of what's going on. Now, I was just going to show you a couple of my digital work too before I got to the boards. This is my son Amari. When he came in, that was the young brother out there who was selling the BrotherMan merchandise. This is him when he was younger, a couple years ago. And this is when I was first getting into the digital arena. But as you see, I like doing distortion, you know, stretching the neck, stretching the features. And when we're talking about the lighting, defining the light source, defining your form by value. You know, so I'm defining the shape of his head by not making a black line around his head, but the next room was dark, so you make that room dark, and that defines it. And then where the shadow under the back of his head is defined by the lighter part in the back room. So I just started getting more of an understanding of that over the years as I was coming up. So I kind of wanted to give the young people a lead on that, because that was something that bothered me for a long time, because I thought I was never able to really figure it out, and I finally got to figuring it out. And let me see here. Now this spot here, I'm going to run this. I was trying to find all the boards. I could not find the original boards for this, but this is a spot I did for Cartoon Network when I was there. And this is one of my favorite spots because I had a lot of freedom to really get wild with it. And basically imagine like the Cartoon Network logo like the Death Star. It's like you're going in the trench, and it went real elaborate, like a lot of detail. So all the details you see in there, I had to draw. Even though we repeated a lot of the patterns, it was still a lot of drawings. So I still have all the original drawings in a box, but it would take me too long to scan it and bring it in here to show you. And I think the original ones got lost. But, and it was all done in pencil. So I did some of the animation in the beginning coming on, and then I was working with the 3D department to build out the animation, to build the universe, and this is what we came up with.
this one started with pencil and paper, not on tablet.
Yeah, this is all pencil and paper. Pencil and paper, even the 3D objects, I drew it in pencil and then it was mapped onto 3D objects. So then everything looks like pencil. And here we go.
How many of y'all remember that?
Actually, like, if I was to take it back, like even the fan, like you see the fan spinning, that was drawn on a separate layer. And as you can see, it's really rough. You know, that's how they wanted the project. They wanted it to look like pencil sketches. They wanted it to be real rough. But all those little details in there, I just had to just create details based on the shows. This was Foster's Home for Imaginary Children. So I was basically pulling from the style of that show to create the details around here. Like even the background, these are actually layers. The window is in the front, the characters on the second layer, then there's another layer behind them, and since there's no shadow, you probably couldn't see the depth right there. But I mean, this probably took about a month of just drawing before going to the animation. So that library you see back there, I draw all those books on there. That's Johnny Bravo right there. Arm, leg, arm, head. Yeah. And,
so Powerpuff Girls and Dexter.
Yeah, Powerpuff Girls. They wanted Dexter looking like Einstein. But as you can see, you know, I had to do this outer layer here, and then this panel, this control panel, then Dexter's on a separate layer. There was an animation, 2D animation team in our department. Somebody knocked out the animation for Dexter, and then I had to create that background in the back. And they wanted me to leave in the rough sketch lines, even the eraser marks, leave all that in. And I think that created like a really unique piece. So a lot of these things you probably don't see the first time you go through. That's why sometimes I have to bring it back the second time. So even the gate here, that's all a pencil drawing. So all this, I think this is before I started using the Wacom tablet and really going full digital. So
the characters in this, did you draw those characters like Powerpuff Girls and Dexter and
now the 2D department, what I did, I had set up the storyboards, the staging, how the camera's going to move. I did basically like style frame. Style frame is you have storyboards like Brian was showing you, like that are showing you the actions of what's going to happen, and then you have style frames where it may not necessarily be action after action. It's more detailed, like this is what it's going to look like. On this angle, this is what it's going to look like. And then the 3D department may take what you've drawn there and then they'll build it and make it real. So, like Brian was saying earlier, with a lot of storyboards, you know, they want us to move fast, move quick. So a lot of times storyboards are rougher. So when I show you some of these storyboards, you'll see that their tendency to be a little rougher. Sorry. Come on.
Go ahead, man.
Question, what program was used for the presentation, for that presentation?
That one?
Yes.
I don't know, because at that time, that was everything I did was conventional.
Okay.
I just drew everything on paper. I had stacks of paper, and I just scanned it in as JPEGs. Okay. And then we have, at Turner, there were so many different departments. Like we had the animation department, 2D department, special visual effects, sound department. So I was doing like storyboards, pre-production work. So I'll create these stacks of drawings, scan them, and then I'll send them to the production manager. Production manager will take it to the 3D department. They do their thing. By the time they're working on their thing, I'm on the next commercial. So a lot of times I don't even see commercials until I might be over somebody's house and it comes on. I say, oh yeah, I worked on that. But I don't really know, because so much stuff comes in on a daily basis, after a while it's just, you're not really even surprised when you see it on television anymore, because you know that's what you do. And you're not really looking for it, you're just going to work and doing them and getting them out. So at that point, I didn't really know. It was more like it was Maya, because that was one of the main programs that they used there, the 3D artists. So I'd probably say Maya.
Would you also say that for a storyboard artist, do they kind of go into animatics as well, or is it just you know, you're a storyboard artist, you stay a storyboard artist, animatics, you stay an animatic artist?
Yeah, animatic, for those who may not know what an animatic is when you take a storyboard. Basically, you take the still frames of the storyboard and you sync it up to the soundtrack. So say, so it'll be like the moving images to the audio soundtrack. So you might, say you have recorded you and your friends doing a discussion or something like that, and then there's sound behind it and whatever. And say it goes for like a minute. And then you draw what's supposed to happen. You do this 1 minute storyboard, and then you sync that up to the track. So you may hold on one drawing for a while because it's just me talking right now. So it's that one image of me. And then when Brian talks, it cuts to that other one facing me. But there's no animation. And it's just boom, boom, boom. And I'm saying this for the audience because they'll know what animation.
Where every tomorrow is every yesterday's nightmare from which you cannot awaken. Welcome to Big City. Until now.
Talking about animatics. You want to know if we used animatics a lot? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I was asking was, like, does storyboard artists tend to do animatic work as well, or is it just two separate things?
No, I think it's all in a line of the same work. I think you may have storyboard artists who aren't motion graphic artists. You know what I mean? Because doing an animatic, like my son actually put that together. I did the artwork and I gave it to him because he does motion graphics.
Right.
So that's his thing.
Right.
So I can do an animatic if I wanted to sit down and actually train with the motion graphics. But I'm like Brian, I'm kind of strictly Photoshop for now.
Right.
So hopefully that's that answer.
Thank you.
In the back.
Well, low key, I saw arrows in that. I mean, is BrotherMan animated? I'm trying to find out.
Not yet. I mean, but that's what I'm saying, because the animatic is basically like a storyboard to a soundtrack. So you can kind of see the action, but it's choppy because it's not fully animated. But the next step would be take what we had there, and now you get an animation team on the project and get it done. But that takes a lot to basically have an animation team pull that off. And also, what I did more with that particular piece was style frames. I did that in about 2 weeks. And style frame, like I said, that's kind of doing more than just rough sketches. I kind of wanted to render it out a little bit, but I was still working fast to run through it. But I wanted to give it, I wanted to show, this is kind of how I see it as a movie, kind of have like an old film look, and it's kind of surreal in terms of this universe that you're creating. So I had to kind of rough that out in the frame so you can see what's going on. And these are some other boards, just some random boards. So this is a storyboard job I just did recently, And I think with this one, you know how we were talking about how directors are different. So this director, he didn't actually specify how he wanted the board. So usually when they don't specify, I kind of have a certain style that I'll work in, which it looks detailed to the eye, but for me, it's actually done relatively quick. So the style that I like to use is kind of like a comic book, graphic novel type style. I'm looking at the script that's given to me, but there's no reference. There's no reference. I don't know what these characters look like. I don't know what they're doing. I mean, in terms of how they're moving. So I have to kind of make that up myself. So with this one, I'll use like gray tones. I always like using gray tones because the gray tone actually helps to create depth of field. For those who may not know what depth of field is, when you have something in black and white, you may not be able to tell who's close and who's far away until you put the shadow on. Then when you put the shadow on, then you can tell, oh, okay, my man is close. I can see his head, right? His head is close to me, then there's a shadow being casted on his eyes, which gives it more drama, makes it more theatrical, and then you can see the distance. I use softer grays in the distance and heavier darks in the foreground to bring the character forward. So just to kind of show you the different styles, because as I show you different types of boards, my style keeps changing, but I always keep it loose. I don't worry about trying to be the best artist when I'm doing storyboards, because a lot of times it's about time. They want X amount of boards done in a day, and I think one gentleman asked earlier, how many boards does it take to do a movie versus versus animation? Somebody asked. Yeah, and it varies from project to project. I did so many commercials at Turner that maybe like a 15-second or 30-second spot usually were like 13 boards, 13 to 16 boards. And then when I worked on film projects, some film projects may go like 150 boards and more. So it all depends on the project and what they need to have done. I want to show you a couple other spots that were actually completed. And like I said, if you have any questions, just jump right in. And, you know what? Oh, yeah. And this is from the new Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie. I don't have the actual clips from the movie, but this was a scene where the two brothers got onto the ride. It was like a spinning ride, and one of the brothers was sick. And when they went on the ride, he ended up vomiting on the guy that was chasing after him, Mr. Beardo. So with this, actually, when I worked on this one, once again, I might have, I think this is before I got the actual cast. I think they were still working on the casting. So I kind of had to just make it up based on the previous movie. But a lot of times they don't worry about that. They just worry about the motion. And somebody asked earlier, like, does the film usually look like you're drawing? A lot of what I did in Wimpy Kid, in the film, they stuck to the boards. So I like that. I like that. And in a lot of commercial work I did, they stuck to the boards. But I worked on projects where, things were changed around to the point where it's like, hey, why they even have me on the project? That, hey, I paid. And that's the nature of the business. You don't really flip out of it.
My first time seeing.
Yeah, so that's space. One scene, and this was the opening to the movie, And see, they had me storyboard, I think about 5 scenes because these were like the elaborate scenes in the movie. So this one, the kids, they were, well, basically he's looking for his little brother, and his little brother climbed into the, what do you call it? The ball. Yeah, the pit where the kids play. And the place is called Corny. It's like a children's amusement center. And so when they go in there, they're talking about how nasty it is. Yeah, it's like a Chuck E. Cheese, yeah, what they call it. And so, you know, we're here. I was looking at the script. The director gave me like a little bit of direction, but he kind of like left it up to me. Like, how do you see it? So I like when they do that too, because when the director gives you direction, it's cool because it makes your job easier. When they don't give you direction, it's cool because if it makes the cut and the film is executed the way that your boards are laid out, you can sit back there and say, "Yo, that was my scene," you know, because they followed your vision. So that's what I like about working on this project. Yeah, yeah, you know, so they're trying to climb through here and kids like falling on what falls in the face. It's supposed to be like a lot of that silly humor. And then, you know, you got to get the arrows in there for the motion. Then you see his brother, and his brother cuts off in another direction. And these, when you see rectangles like this with the arrows, that means it's going to start, it's going to be pushed in. The camera's going to be close up in this frame at first, and it's going to pull out to reveal this wider frame. So sometimes you see somebody's face up close, and then the camera pulls out to reveal like what's going on around them. So in storyboards, we have to establish that shot as well. I saw Brian had a couple of those in the Walking Dead spot. So you'll see a lot of those, like when you study storyboards, you're going to see a lot of that type of movement. Sometimes they rotate it, like the camera may be in like this, and then it's rotated like this, where it's like the camera's pulling out and turning like that, and opening up wide. So there's a lot of that as well. Here is now this is one of my older ones. What's it? Okay, and this is an older one, but at least it does show you the board and the final spot. So this is like the first Spider-Man. This is when it came out on TNT. So like I said, I did a lot of boards for TNT, PBS, CNN, Boomerang, anything under the Turner umbrella. So basically for this one, I had to kind of create my own vision. And this is one of those rare full color spots. So it was supposed to start off with the the spiderweb. And I wanted to highlight the reds and the blues to match the Spider-Man colors. And then as we're going through the web, then you see a spider up here. Then the spider drops down into the pit. Then we zoom up on the spider, and then we pull out from the spider, and you see that the spider is spinning the TNT because the Spider-Man came out TNT. So here's the final. Like I said, I had a lot of these already set up. I had that crash. Yeah.
you have a question.
Oh. Yes, question?
What is the average salary for storyboard artists?
I think that varies depending on, I think it depends on what you demand. You know, it's really hard for me to say because there's jobs that I did not get paid too well on and some jobs got paid well on because it all depended on the company that you're working for, what they stand to pay. I don't know, what's your thoughts on that?
I charge for what I think my time is worth based on previous projects and what what my lifestyle is worth or what my lifestyle requires. So it's not a straight question. There's no one answer for that.
Yeah, because you could say like, okay, like say hours. Somebody could demand $75 an hour. You know what I mean? And then you got somebody else at $150 an hour. So they may look at what your track record is, their budget at the time, because sometimes you can tell somebody some number that you may think that they may not be able to, they're not going to hire you that. And they'll be like, okay, cool, we'll work you into the budget. And then you're like, man, I should have asked. You know what I mean? So that can happen. And then you go somewhere else and ask for the same amount of money, and they'll say they'll want to pay you half of it because of their budget. And then sometimes you may be in demand because I had jobs where I wasn't looking for the jobs. People called me up, hey, we need you to work on a specific project. So that kind of puts me in the driver's seat. So I say, oh, okay, well, my rate is this. And then they say, okay, can you start on Monday? And it's a 1-month project to work on. So, you see what I'm saying? So everybody's different, like, because even when me and Brian talk, his experiences are different than mine. It's similar in some ways, but, we kind of have different experiences.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, like, when you were coming up, what did you ask for? Because right now, like, I'm doing a lot of cheap stuff and doing a lot of free stuff with my friends that, like, the products I really enjoy, just to get the experience, just to get my name out there right now. But what did you guys ask for when you were rising to your career right now?
See, the reason why that's hard to say is because also if I say what I asked for back in the 80s and the 90s, you know what I mean? It's different. That's why when I said that book, Pricing and Ethical Guidelines, that shows you what the industry standard is. Really, if this is what people are getting paid now, but also people are getting paid that way based on their experience. You see what I'm saying? So somebody may get paid X amount of dollars because they worked on X amount of projects, and then you come in having no experience on a project, they may not want to pay you the same amount. But then there's some people come in with no experience, and they may luck out because the person, sometimes with art, sometimes you're dealing with different personalities. Somebody may not even know that you're new. They just see your portfolio and say, wow, we need that person on this project. How much do you charge? And then you say, well, I do stuff for my friends for free. You're not going to say that. You're going to say, oh, well, I charge this much because you looked in the book and say, okay, well, I'm going to charge something in that range. And then they may say, okay, cool. They hired you for the project. That was your first project. You come in paid. Now you're a professional. You know what I mean? So when you do your next project, you can demand that because now you've gotten paid. That's why I say it's different. It's hard to just put a number out because it varies from person to person.
My favorite thing is asked is when someone says, "What do you charge? What is your budget?"
Yeah,
and that changes everything. That could be a 5-second conversation, or it could be a whole new relationship.
And I want to add to that is that the art business also incorporates negotiation. You got to know how to negotiate. And that's an awesome response. It's like, well, what's your budget? And if you don't have the experience in negotiating, you're not going to charge what is right. But without that knowledge, your very basic should be minimum wage. You should never work for less than minimum wage because that's the law. So understand what that is. $10. Say $10, fine, let's start with that. But as more experience you get, as time goes on, then you know what you should really be charging. or who you're talking to, because you could talk to somebody here may have a project they want you to work on, and then they want you to, as a collaborator, to work for free. But then you can step into a studio who has a lot of money, Disney, and they have a much larger budget, so your price range will also change depending who you're talking to. But that's going to come with experience. So at the very minimum wage, no less.
If you're doing a minimum wage job for Disney,
then you need to learn how to negotiate. That's negotiation. If you don't know how to negotiate.
What I mean to say is, if you do decide that you're going to do this job at a very low fee, the work that you create will be then used to escalate your value.
Right, that too. Yep.
Your experience. It's a stair step.
Yep. A lot of us artists do the same thing. We take on projects to work with other clients that would then, having that client in your roster as a client will raise up your price immediately.
Exactly.
The brother up front and then our us.
There's no answer.
You know, I would equate that with just being an entrepreneur, because that's what we, we're full time on our freelance work, and I think anybody who's an entrepreneur who's doing their own thing, you have those spikes where you're sitting on the world, like jobs come in left and right, like, man, I'm passing these jobs off to Brian. And then there's other days where we're like, yo, we ain't got any jobs. But my job's still hanging around.
But actually, a good answer for that is there's no time, because as an entrepreneur, I'm not a salary guy. I don't know exactly when my next project is going to come down the pipeline. I was at Disney for 5 years. One of those years, I was straight gold brick because there was no structure. I would just go to my office. I would read books on the next how to develop techniques and coloring styles and research. And I wasn't actually creating, but I was infusing my brain so that I could increase my knowledge. So there was really no downtime. Because I love what I do, so I enjoy it.
Question? Are there any forums or guilds, how they have writers guilds and sculpting guilds? Is there anything for artists, where there's benefit, there's things like benefits for your families and things for the things that you guys do? Are there?
I don't know, but if anybody knows one, let me know.
AIGA. Y'all need to come to my meetups. No. AIGA and Freelancers Union. And they don't change their name now, but look it up on Twitter. Freelancers Union.
It's not really a union, is it?
No, they're working on it. They actually, what they do is they help lobby the government for the laws and rights of artists and creators. Yeah. AIGA.
Oh, really? No, I was just saying, California, they had an animation guild, animators union.
Yeah.
But because we're in Georgia, there are no unions.
New York has the Scenic Artists Guild, which handles productions along the East Coast.
And Georgia is working on that anyway, though, because of all the film and TV that's happening here. So they're working on that too. Teamsters.
It's gotta be.
Like, what's the most you've heard of somebody working on a project?
I have a friend who's a sculptor, and he makes bank. I mean, hard of bank. He did a job, it took 2 months. He's another one. He's brilliant. See, I don't talk about that. I don't know my experience. I don't really ask.
Yeah, with storyboard art, some storyboard artists charge by the day, flat rate by the day. Some storyboard artists charge by the hour, and some charge by panel. Like, I remember a guy who was doing a presentation who was like $40 per panel for line work, $50 for grade panel, and $60 for full color. But this was that guy. You know what I mean? To me, I'm looking at like that sounds good, but in certain types of projects, it doesn't pan out. Like, say 3 boards, sometimes you do the math, like, is that worth it, for this many boards, or should I charge them a flat rate when you may get more for your time? And then there's changes. Remember we were talking about the changes earlier? They may ask you to change something. If you're on a day rate, they can change as long as you're within that 8-hour window. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. It's just so different that what you have to do is just kind of establish what works for you, work with it, and then as you meet people, maybe you talk to them what they do. But then some people, they may not tell you because they may flip it up. They may flip how they're doing their pricing later on, and they may not want to